Welcome to another episode of Comedy Wham Presents with me, your host Valerie, and sometime co-host Miss Purrington, although she's on vacation today because we're on location. ComedyWham.com is your place to go for features about all Austin comedy. We bring you articles and podcasts featuring the best in Austin comedy in all its shapes and formats. Started in 2016, the podcast project brings you funny people and their stories. As a fan, I like to delve into a comic's background and motivations, and will usually take a detour along the way. Consider the interview a way for you to get to know the folks that make the Austin comedy scene one of the best in the country. Today, we sit down with someone who recently moved to Austin, and as far as I'm concerned, has made a loud and prominent splash on the comedy scene. The first time I heard her was actually on the dearly departed Storyfellers, and I thought, at the time, that she had an interesting voice, let alone an interesting name. I've gotten to see her perform a number of times since then, and each time I'm more and more impressed. Capable at both stand-up and improv comedy, you're going to want to make sure that you catch this comic on the various comedy stages of Austin. Just be sure to practice pronouncing her name first. Stay tuned for my demonstration of exactly how not to pronounce it. And now, Comedy Wham presents our guest, Brett VerVoort.
Hey!
Hey, welcome.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Here on location at this undisclosed location.
Undisclosed. We had to blindfold Valerie to get her here.
Yeah, which made it really tricky for setting up all of the equipment.
Yeah, we kind of, it's just like that Miracle Worker movie. We just had someone behind you, ghosting, setting up everything. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you for taking the time to sit down with me.
Thank you.
I like to start these off with an icebreaker question. Mm-hmm. One word to describe your past.
Ooh. Sorted.
Sorted. Oh, my goodness. I can't wait to hear this. Fun. Right? I hope.
Yeah.
Well, you're here in Austin now, hopefully not under a witness protection program.
If I was, I couldn't tell you.
That's true. You could not. That's true. Oh, and you recently changed hairstyles, so...
I did. Oh. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe I'm just becoming more of myself. Who knows?
Yeah. Fair enough. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Houston, Texas.
Oh, I don't know why I thought you were from farther away than that.
Well, I think I have a northern dialect because I have a lot of family that's from Michigan and Chicago. So a lot of people think I'm from, like, they think I'm a Yankee. They're like, yeah, you just sound like you're from Chicago because every once in a while a word will slip in. Mm-hmm. That'll be like roof. And they'll be like, I don't trust you. But born in Houston, raised in Houston my whole life.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then with your name, which I'm from Belgium. So the VerVoort is a very familiar name in terms of the Netherlands and that Flemish type of...
Yes, Belgian Dutch heritage.
Yeah.
Are we like the Smiths over there? I've never been, but I presume I'm going to be like, because here at least I feel special. Right. But if I go... It's going to be like so many VerVoorts.
Yeah. The Ver is, that's the Smiths. The rest, could be more unique.
Yes. Yeah. Well, give me something to cling to. Let's say it is. Let's say I'm a rare gem.
Of course. Do you have any early comedic memories that you can think of?
Early comedic memories in terms of things I've watched or like things I did that were funny.
Either one.
Well, a show I grew up with when I was really young was Blackadder, which was a BBC comedy starring Rowan Atkinson, who plays Mr. Bean. It had 4 series, and I had it all on VHS tape, and I would play those tapes all the time. And it's a very dry, cynical, like disparaging kind of wit to those shows. But for some reason, I thought it was like the funniest show I'd ever seen. And in terms of things I did, one time I was with my grandma at her house, and I have a bad problem of snooping in other people's bathrooms. I don't know why.
Keep that in mind, folks. If I've
used your bathroom, I'm like at least going through like a drawer, I don't know. It's just so intimate. But anyways, I was going through my grandmother's bathroom, which I'd been through multiple times before. But this time I pulled out an electric razor and I turned it on. And it was really strange to me because my grandma had, that very smooth, papery old people skin. So I didn't know why she had a razor in the first place. I was like, that's weird. And I turned it on, and then I tried to turn it off, but the button was stuck. I couldn't turn it off, and I was freaking out because I was like, oh my God, my grandma's going to know I was going through her things, and I was like going to get yelled at or whatever, and I was freaking out, and I was trying to like bust it open, and it just kept shaking and shaking and shaking and shaking. Eventually, I got it out, and I got it fixed. But after like freaking out and like laughing to the point of crying at just the fact that I was going to get in trouble, and it was just really fun for me.
How old were you? Do you remember?
I must have been like 13 or 14, but I remember telling that story to my family members and just being like, yeah, what? At first they were like, are you sure it was a razor, Brad? You sure it wasn't something else? I was like, yeah, I was sure it was a razor. It just was strange to me because I always thought grandma was naturally hairless. And then I just started laughing so hard that I cried. Because those moments are the most fun for me. The type of fun that's fun where you're almost about to get in trouble is like the best for me.
Yeah. Cool. And did you do any performance? I'm curious as to how you got a start in comedy, if it started at an early age.
I did get started performing at an early age. I started in the arts, as it were, when I was maybe 8 or 9. I directed a little mini music video for my friends. Well, not really for my friends, because I was hanging out by myself in the computer lab most of elementary school.
Okay.
So I shot, directed, and edited this short little video. And I wanted to be a director. I thought I was really good at it. It was really fun for me. And then my dad suggested, hey, well, if you want to be able to be behind the camera, you should learn how to be in front of it first.
Oh, interesting.
So he told me that I should start taking acting classes. So I got into theater when I was around middle school.
Okay.
And then I was like a heavy theater kid all through middle school, all through high school. I did the summer camps. I did the intensives.
You were invested.
I was invested. I did the big college auditions where you audition for like Juilliard and all these places with their very expensive BFA programs. I went to school to get a BFA in acting, but halfway through, I like stopped being in love with it. I had always loved comedy, but I stopped loving acting, or I guess maybe the acting environment would be more accurate. And I'd... go ahead.
So, yeah, because I'm formulating follow-up questions. So let's pause there.
Yes.
So by the point that you fell out of love with it, you essentially had been spending half of your life in this world. Oh,
yeah. I had like every single bookcase. Like if you had a full bookshelf, it was full of scripts. It was full of acting theory. It was business acting. It was also like behind the scenes stuff. I wanted to know everything there was about like putting on a production. So I was fully invested. So when I left, it almost kind of felt like getting a divorce, just because you're like, wow, I've spent so much time and energy and investment in this, and now I don't know what I'm going to do without it.
And was it like just a snap decision, or did something, were you just getting this gnawing feeling?
I think there was a kind of restlessness underneath the surface. I always loved comedy, and I would always talk about it. I think what kind of turned the tide is right as like my anxiety about acting was kind of going down, I started taking improv classes at the then New Movement Theater. And so I was finding this new great comedy community that was giving me an artistic outlet that I was able to express myself in. And I was in my junior year, and we had to do a big production. You had to do a solo performance piece.
Okay.
So you have 10 minutes pretty much to do object work with, like, mine was a rope, and you have to be very, like, creative with your object work. But basically, you had 10 minutes to kind of write a piece and perform a solo piece. And that was kind of like my first stand-up set.
Huh.
I spent like 6 months writing it and working on it and rehearsing it. And I got all these laughs, and it was the best feeling in the world. And then some friends of mine were like, Brett, you should be doing that.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you'd gotten applauses and I'm sure adulation as a performer before.
Yeah, I'd gotten really far as a performer, and I'd gotten a lot of praise from people I respected, but there's just something about stand-up. It was like, I'm almost getting emotional.
Yeah,
just thinking about it.
I have to make a break because people obviously can't see your face.
Yeah.
You are lighting up. You're smiling really big. It's like, yeah.
It was just so,
She fell in love.
I did. I was head over heels. Yeah, and because I think to love an art, you have to love every part of the art. Mm-hmm. And comedy, I love it when it's good, and I love it when it's bad. I love it when it's like the most frustrating thing. Because it's just like, it's just pure. It's just like, if you distilled a person into an essence, like a perfume, and you just wore them around all day, like a good joke is like a perfume you just wear around all day. And I just wanted to drown myself in perfume.
Huh. Yeah. What got you to that first improv class?
My dad actually got a Groupon, so I wouldn't be here.
Your dad has been really pivotal in a number of your life events.
It's weird because, like, as a teenage girl, you think you're doing a lot of things in rebellion because of your dad. Yeah. You're like, fuck you, Dad. Sorry.
It's okay to cuss.
Okay, yeah, I was like, I'm done with this. I'll do my own thing. Yeah. But in each of those sort of key moments, he was there. And so, but I think he's also like kind of surprised how deep I've gotten into comedy.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of my family still thinks of me as this very serious actor. Mm. And I'm like, yeah, but now I tell jokes. Yeah, but now I tell jokes and put on sketches about pooping yourself, so...
Well, you're one of those triple threat performers because you can do acting / sketch, you can do improv, and you do stand up. So that's.
Yeah, I think some of the old theater training never left. Where like when I'm in it, I'm like all in it.
Yeah,
and I want to know the method. I want to know, like, the more that I can learn, the better, because I love learning. And what's great about stand-up comedy, and some other art forms too, it's just like, because if I'm like building a table, when the table's done, my job is done, in a sense. Mm-hmm. But with jokes and comedy and art, it's like, there's no really end result. It's never going to be perfect, but you're constantly like refining and striving and trying to make it perfect. Mm-hmm. So I love that there's no end date to it. Yeah. It just keeps growing and spinning into this beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. So you're still in school when you're doing the improv classes, and how did you get your way out of either this degree or this path that you were on while you're pursuing this new love of your life?
Well, I was at an emotional low point at the time. Because my great-grandmother had just died. So I was at a very, like, emotional place.
Yeah.
And I was also in fights with my family about money, and I had to sell a lot of my possessions just to, like, be able to, just to keep living. lost my job, it was one of those things where it's like, it wasn't as smooth of a transition as I would have liked, but had it not happened the way that it happened, it wouldn't have forced me to go so far into it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it was a kick in the ass to be like, you got nothing left, girl. Yeah. Like, sometimes rock bottom is the best jumping off point. Mm-hmm. Is that too sad? Is that too sad to say on a comedy podcast? No. I had nothing left, and I thought, you know what? This is the perfect time.
Okay.
No, but sometimes you got to get out of your own way, you know?
Yeah.
And I definitely got out of mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. As you're doing the improv, the sense that I'm getting just from our brief conversation is you throw yourself into something pretty fully.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Do you, I mean, okay, so just a little sidebar here. For those of you listening in the past, the new movement has been the theater that people have referred to. It is now called 616 Lavaca, so I will try to do a good job of referring to it as 616 Lavaca. And I don't know if, because you're probably more familiar with, you know, the decision to change the name and whether or not it's okay to call it the new movement in the, you know, for pre-2018, or if it's just always call it 616 now.
I mean, seeing as these events are so recent, I feel like any past reference can be T&M. Because every once in a while, my friends will accidentally slip and they'll text it to me. They're like, going to T&M tonight. And you're like, what you saying?
Yeah. But it's a long-standing venue that has been a host to both improv shows, sketch shows, stand-up shows. So it's been a good space for people to practice all sorts of comedy performance. So given that, it probably wasn't too hard for you to figure out, oh, there's also stand-up over here that's happening? Or were you just like, no, improv?
I started off doing improv, and then I had to stop for a while because I was having money problems. But before I stopped doing my improv classes, I took like a tech job because I didn't want to stop taking my classes and then eventually just like wither away and quit. So I figure like the best way to stay involved is to be around. Mm-hmm. So I got a weekly tech shift, and I teched Thursday Block Party, which was a long-running open mic. Okay. And I teched it for 2 years. This is before I even told a joke on stage. Okay. I just watched Block Party for 2 years and watched people do this open mic for a long time. Uh-huh. So I would get to know people in the scene before I got to know them as a person. Like, I would see Taylor Dowdy, and I'd be like, oh, you have that great joke about Jesus and the roofing nails and things like that. But it was a way to kind of get myself involved and kind of maybe work my courage up, I guess.
Which is a funny thing for you to say, given that with acting and improv, the courage existed. This was just because it was a different format. What was it about stand-up that was intimidating to you? That I cared so much if it went well. Because improv and acting are both kind of like team sports. Because it's not just you. It's your connection with your partner on stage and things like that. So you're never like alone. Yeah. But stand-up is you and your opinions. And honestly, like, I would cry when anyone would try and get me to talk about myself. You're like getting like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow. Like, before we did the solo piece that eventually kind of became my first stand-up set, I remember he was like, guys, you're all going to write a 10-minute solo piece. And then I just was in the class and I was just sobbing because I didn't want to talk about myself. Oh, wow. So it's like risking that vulnerability because I cared so much. And I also, like,
I thought everybody who was on it, it's weird because like Block Party, some people would be like, that's not that great of an open mic, but I thought everybody was so cool. I thought they were so cool and so smart and so funny, and I just like wanted to be a cool, smart, funny person. And it's just like, it mattered so much to me that I probably like psyched myself out because I was like, oh no, it's gonna be dumb, you're just gonna be dumb, and they're gonna be like, why is this nerdy theater kid trying to move in on our stand-up cool edgy territory? But they let me in.
Yeah. Well, they'd seen you teching for 2 years, why wouldn't they?
Yeah, of course. They're like, hey, tech from Black Party, and I'm like, yes, also Brett. Yeah, but eventually I did it, and it's just kind of like...
Do you remember how that first time went?
It went surprisingly well. I don't remember what some of my first jokes were. I'm sure I have it in a notebook somewhere. Or it's like a lot of poop jokes, I'm sure. But it went well enough for me not to be dissuaded and to do it again.
Well, who was going to dissuade?
Yeah.
Just you, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I've been through enough, like, audition scenarios to where I'm like, all right, you know, this isn't the worst rejection I've ever had, you know? So my threshold for rejection's pretty high. Like, I'll just keep going. I'll power through. So it went well, and I just kept doing it and signing up for other ones.
Just for a sense of time, how long ago was that?
I've been doing stand-up comedy for 2 years.
Okay.
Come this past January.
Okay.
But yeah, it definitely like took me a while to like find my voice or kind of find my own sense of humor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I've just loved it ever since. I feel like things have really kicked into high gear the last year for me.
Yeah.
I feel like the growth's been kind of exponential.
You didn't even bother to correct me on you recently moved to Austin because you've been in Austin for...
About 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's, I don't know, that's recent for some people. It's like a short marriage.
Yeah.
You know? Feels like yesterday.
Yeah. But, I mean, just personally, that timing really was that I heard you on Storyfellers, and then I started hearing you on more podcasts, and then I started seeing you on shows. And
yeah, it's just, like, been a real domino effect. Like, looking back on it now, I'm just like, I don't even know how it happened. You're like, recall all these things. I'm like, it's a mystery. They just keep saying yes, and I keep showing up places,
yeah.
So till they say no, I'm going to keep showing up.
Yeah.
And even then, I might still show up. Who knows?
Do you find yourself having a tug of war with improv versus stand-up?
Yes, sometimes. And I think it's just because I'm trying to be sort of a jack of all trades. And that is troubling just because, like, it's like having 3 different mouths to feed. And it's like, if I'm taking care of one, am I not taking enough care of the other? Like, in my head, philosophically, everything helps everything else. Like, the sketch writing helps make me a better writer, and the improv helps with me staying present on stage and also keeping it loose and staying flexible, and the stand-up helps me to, like, sense pauses and kind of get a sense of, like, what even is funny, what an audience is going to laugh at.
Yeah.
So, in my head, esoterically, it all makes sense, but, like, then you try and put that on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week schedule, and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have that kind of internal struggle. But honestly, I'm going to try and parent them both the best I can, and then we'll see which one slams the door in their face and talks about me in therapy. We'll just see.
Yeah. One of my favorite performances that I got to see you at was the Waterbed show with Mac, where the whole premise was the business presentation.
Yeah, super business Omnicon.
Yeah. And something that you said earlier really just brought the visual of sitting in that audience and watching you talk about like just being uber committed to the role and the part. It was just really fun to watch. And it's as an audience member, when, as well or as poorly something goes, when the performer is fully committed to it, it just makes it so much fun. And you were great. I didn't mean to suggest not, but sometimes you see train wrecks on stage, but if they're fully committed to it, it kind of makes the train wreck fun to watch.
Yeah.
But you were so committed to that whole concept.
Yeah, it was that whole time. I was going balls out. But it was funny because it's like, while it was going on, I was like, man, I can't tell if I'm funny or I'm so alienating that's funny. Uh-huh. Like, no one can relate to it. And that's what's hilarious. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I think my improv has taught me, is just like, as long as you're like fully committed to a character, and even if that's just like a small little character that you do for a bit, they don't even have to understand the joke fully to find it funny. Mm-hmm. But as long as you're engaged, they're going to be engaged too.
Yeah.
100%.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of what I want to ask next. One of the things that I saw is that you do have an improv troupe that you regularly perform with. Is that?
It's an improv / sketch group. We're called Eggs.
Okay.
We all have egg tattoos. I got one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about commitment.
I tell you, man, when I'm in, I'm in. It started off as like me and these 4 guys that we all came through improv classes together. Mm-hmm. And then it started to spin out into this like beautiful like collaborative thing. And then we started holding auditions for it so we could get like performers that we really liked to be a part of the group. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy it because I feel like we're trying to do some more experimental stuff that hasn't been done with improv or sketch. Because we just put on a sketch show, Staple Face, that got really positive reviews, and we did like a 6-week run of it, which isn't normal for the sketch shows that TNM used to do. Mm-hmm. And it was very like subversive because we had short little improv games that were actually written sketches. So we have like, hey, we're gonna play this short little improv game for you. It's called like Childhood Toy. All right, so can someone give me like a childhood toy that they grew up with? And then the whole bit is my friend Clayton shoving the toy up his ass and moving it through his body and pulling it out of his mouth and then giving it back to the audience member.
Oh my gosh. But
what's great about it is how much he commits to the bit, because you're like, because it would make you uncomfortable if it was a minute long, and that thing is like 3 minutes long.
Wow.
And the whole time he's like trying to make himself regurgitate this fake toy and like keep the dimensions. And it's just hilarious every single time. I've seen it so many times. It is so funny. One time he actually did throw up on stage, and we were all like, we thought it was hilarious because it just had this perfect little arc, like in a cartoon. We go pew. And it was in the middle of a show, and you're like, oh, you can't get moments like that. So, I don't know. Has my humor matured? I don't know. But I think what's really great about it is because it's like it's making fun of improv as an art form and like what it tries to do in these like little Whose Line Is It Anyway short form games. It's very unusual and it's very unexpected. And it's very rewarding for me because of that, because I think it's constantly pushing me to think about jokes and joke structure and comedy in a very experimental way.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been with this group?
I think we've only been together about a little bit over a year.
Okay.
But it's gone through so many transformations in that time. Like, we've lost members and then gained like 3 more members, and then lost 2 and then gained 3 more. So it's been very fluid. But we got big plans for it. Like, we're going to try and take it to some festivals. We're working on a new show. We're trying to do maybe something to do with technology, because a lot of shows are very dystopian right now. So we want to do a show conceptually that's we hack each sketch from within the sketch. Yeah, I know. It's I'll give you an example, and I don't think this is going to make sense, but like, we want to have one scene that's just like a guy he orders a McRib, and then he eats the McRib, and we watch him eat the full McRib, like, till it's done. And then at the end, he like just pulls a cord out of his mouth, and he's like, no, the McRib's been hacked. And then we have like a pregnancy that's been hacked, where this woman gives birth, and it's just an Ethernet cable, and like,
oh my gosh.
It's just very weird, but yeah, we want to hack each sketch from within the sketch, kind of make it into this weird techno sketch show.
Yeah.
But it sounds fun to me. Like, it sounds like something you wouldn't see anywhere else, and for that reason,
right,
my old theater brain is like, that sounds so fun.
Yeah, and that's probably the type of thing that gives you an advantage for submitting to the festivals, is you're doing something unique.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're doing something different. Yeah. I would love to take it to like Edinburgh, or take it to the Fringe Festival, because it's very experimental. Although we did do Frontera Fest, and although some people really enjoyed it, there's always one person who doesn't like how weird it is. There was this one woman in the front row, and she was like mean mugging us the whole time. She just refused to laugh. But it's just like, but then that just makes you go harder. You're like, I'm gonna get you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come back for you.
I have such a hard time sitting in an audience, because my natural sitting position is closed arms. So then I try to compensate by smiling really obnoxiously big.
Yeah.
So that the person, if they see me in the audience, they don't think, oh, she must hate us.
Because your body language is like closed off. Yeah. You know what helps with that? Having a drink in your hand.
Oh, wow.
if you got 2 drinks in your hand,
well,
can't cross your arms.
That's true. I'll double fist my club sodas.
Hell yeah. That's how you do
Living life on the edge.
That's how you go see a comedy show. Club soda. Get wrecked.
Yeah. I was telling you that I went to go see Avery Moore's show last night, and it's to the point where Lindsay, the waitress, she knows that, club soda? Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I always wanted that. I always wanted to like be like a regular someplace. They're just like, hey, Brett.
Only it was, more adventurous drink. With a lime this time.
Dare to be different, I don't think you need to like order some sort of fishbowl cocktail,
Okay, so festival ideas and plans for your improv troupe.
Yes.
Where do you stand on that with respect to your stand-up comedy?
It's hard because Sam Talent was just in town, and we interviewed him for Leading the Blind, and it's just like, if I want to do stand-up, it's like, you're right, it's like, I gotta go all in with it. And so I think that just like might mean over the course of the next few years, like trying to increase the amount of stand-up I'm doing and like festivals I'm going to.
Yeah.
And then decreasing like my amount with improv. And it's...
You're not you don't like that idea.
I want it all.
Yeah.
I want it all. But time is the nature of it. We only have one life to live.
Yeah.
That is the tragic part of our fate. But You know what? What I love about eggs is we've had so many members come in and drop out. If I dropped out for a month, I could come back the next month. And that's the thing that I love about it is just like, I think it's just like a beautiful thing that will always kind of be there. And I have the tattoo. So even if...
It will always be there.
It will always be there. Because I do have stand-up aspirations. Like, I want to go to LA and I want to do a bunch of shows and I want to really... build that up. I want to be one of the cool, funny people that I was intimidated to talk to. You know?
Yeah.
I think just I want to be the best version of myself that I can be, and I think stand up is maybe more of the way to do that than through improv. Mm-hmm.
This got deep.
It did get deep. I feel like I keep getting deep.
Well, it's funny because your persona on stage is just so, not to say that you're not here, but it's just so bubbly and just really, you're going to hate me for doing this, but like an everybody's mom, like, you know, you just want to hug everybody and you're so bubbly and that's the persona that to me you have on stage. And here you're just very demure. And I forgot to mention it in the introduction, but you do co-host Leading the Blind with Ariel Norman. And there you're more low key. You kind of pop in with your questions.
Yes.
So I want to now, since we've gotten deep, how did you settle on and of course this is based on, I don't know, how long have we been talking? 30 some odd minutes. Just a very zen presence, just sitting here talking to you. But on stage, if you're so bubbly, how did you get to that's who you want to be on stage?
Well, I think that's an aspect of my personality. It's like how people can be considered on and off. And there's some people in the scene that are definitely like always on. And if we're like hanging out and I've got a couple drinks in me and not just sipping on jasmine tea... Trust me, I get wild. I'm pretty fun. And I do. I love that you said that I have a mom persona. I'm actually not mad about that. Because, like, I love playing host. And comedy is kind of like that. It's like, I get to invite these people into my home. And I get to make sure that they have a good time. And I get to make them smile. And it's just like, it's like when you cook a really nice meal for someone and then you get to watch them eat it, and that's almost like just as satisfying just to like nourish people that way.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely how I kind of approach stand-up is I just want to make these people smile and I just want to like nourish them and make them feel good and not make them feel like their dumb choices are bad and like, like we're all dumb. We're all just like faking it together.
Yeah.
But I think my eagerness to express myself comes from just being kind of maybe a quiet, serious, demure person. Just like, when anybody asks you for advice and you're like, oh my God, it's finally happened. Someone cares what I think. And I could say something that could change their evening or the course of their day. And just because we know now through social media that a lot of people don't kind of care what you think. But whenever someone really genuinely does care what you think, you're always so excited.
Yeah.
And so I'll be a quiet, demure person drinking my jasmine tea, worrying about my orchid plants at home, trying to find the right bread pudding recipe to bring to a basketball game. And then I go on stage and I'm like, oh man, these people just want to know what's going on in this dome. And that's so fun to share with people, just like the introverted thoughts that I have.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, now since I have you as the co-host of Leading the Blind at my disposal, I want to see if I could turn any of the Leading of the Blind type questions on you.
I mean, you could. I mean, I feel like I keep throwing you into the deep end, and you're like, no, Brad. That's where I like. Yeah, some people like to wade in the shallow pool. I'm like, it's the Scorpio in me. I'm like, no, let's dig deep. What are your fears?
Well, one of the sets of questions that I like to ask is, what do you love about being a performer? And then what do you hate about being a performer?
What I love about being a performer is probably just the freedom from self that it provides. Like, acting and even sort of stand-up is kind of like this great feeling of escapism. Like, when you're in the zone, you really feel kind of almost out of body.
Yeah.
Like, it almost kind of feels like prayer, almost, just in that sense of like your arms feel bigger than they are in real life. Like, you know what I mean? Or like your physical presence feels bigger.
Yeah.
You feel like I get swollen on stage is what I'm trying to say. This just sounds like a super narcissistic thing. Like, yeah, bro, we can hear your head swelling over the microphone. No, but I like it. I love feeling bigger than myself. And that's what I love about performing. And what I don't like about performing, or I guess maybe to say about just like artistic culture, is that I think we're almost captive to audiences in some ways, because when you have a set that's going really well, like, it's perfect symmetry between you and the audience going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But sometimes it's like I think we have to make the choices that they don't want us necessarily to make. I think people should take big risks on stage, and I think we have a tendency to play safe, because that's where the money is. Because a lot of people want people that can reach the biggest amount of audience, which I think is valuable. But I think finding your audience is maybe more special, because they're coming out there to see you, and they're coming out there because they know that you can give them an experience they can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
And so not being beholden to what the audience expects of you, I think, is kind of the downside. Is like sometimes a bad audience makes you think you did a bad set, and that's not the way it is.
Right.
So don't be beholden to that. Oof, that was a very roundabout answer.
Yeah. Well, you can avoid my question if you want to, but one of the recent performances that I saw you at, where you were doing, I guess, a quote unquote tryout to be a future host at Cap City.
Yeah.
And I imagine that's an example of a situation where, you gotta toe the line, you gotta be clean-ish, you have, lots of rules and requirements, because it's Cap City. And as much as we all love what Cap City does for the scene and what it, the people that it brings in, to suddenly go from, hey, you can do whatever you want at the Cherrywood open mic, to, okay, now I got to follow a list of rules just to make money at Cap City. How did that experience go for you to make that?
It was a little tricky. I'm always like, I don't want to be up there like pretending that I don't care what other people think, but at some point it's like, no, I have to tell the jokes that I want to tell. So I tried to clean them up, like, rather than say stick his dick in, I'll say make love to. Just kind of those, like, you make those HR changes for it. But yeah, that's kind of the nature of the business. And maybe that's why I liked T&M. I found that at the right moment in my life, just because they let me put on like whatever kind of weird show I wanted to put on. And so eventually the goal is, you hope to get to that level to where you can just do what you want.
Yeah.
And they'll roll with it.
It's kind of a weird career path because you start off and, I'll just pick on something you said earlier on. You start off and you're all poop jokes.
Yeah.
But then, you get good at the poop jokes, and in order to get on the money-making stages, you got to pull back on the poop jokes.
Yes. Got to bring in the...
eventually you can go back to the poop jokes. It's just a weird, most experiences, it's a bell curve. You go up and then you go down. This one is you start up, go down, then back up. It's kind of a weird comedy trajectory.
It is, but it's just like, it's also just like business ethics. Like if you're featuring, sometimes they don't want you to be funnier than the headliner.
Oh wow.
So
how do you judge that I mean
you might just like tell some of your jokes that won't get the same reaction, or just kind of, I don't know, play with your rhythm. Like, but it's so hard, like, because like me, when I'm like in it, I'm like, I just want to be as big as possible. Mm-hmm. But people do, and that gets them booked on further gigs because it's just the professional courtesy is that you have this build of host to feature to headliner. Then by the end, they're like, oh, the headliner blew my mind and all that sort of stuff. It's weird because stand-up is such a solo sport. Mm-hmm. But then when we have to work on a team, it always kind of feels like compromise.
Yeah.
And you don't want to compromise that. But eventually you get to the point where you either don't have to compromise or just compromise if the money and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
That's the dream. I'll compromise, but only if I'm well paid for it. Yes.
I like the fact that we've now dropped in a Rock reference.
That's good. He's in everything these days. Why shouldn't he be in this podcast?
Yeah, that's right. Dwayne, love to sit down with you. Just, holler.
Yeah. I would love to see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson do like a tight five somewhere. Yeah.
That'd be great.
It would be amazing. He could just sell it on his smile alone.
He could. He could just stand there for 5 minutes smiling.
Oh, yeah.
We'd all be...
It would be funny, and then it would stop being funny, and then it would get funny again.
Yeah.
Because he's still smiling.
Right.
And you're like, what does he know that we don't know? A lot. Yeah. His tattoos, they just like morph into the map from Waterworld or something. So dumb. Ooh. Old school Kevin Costner fans? No.
Let's see. Let's throw another leading the blind question at you. Where do you see yourself in? Do you usually do 5 years? Is that the type of question you guys?
I think so. Yeah, it's just like what are your goals for the next few years and things like that, or any projects that you're working on and stuff like that. I'd like to take what Eggs is doing and get it to a wider audience, because I think we're doing some stuff that I'm really excited by and think that people would really respond to. And then for me personally, I would love to do more festivals. And I know that people kind of poop on festivals.
Yeah, there's a 50-50 camp out there.
Yeah, it's pretty split down the middle, which is totally fair because it's more like for networking than anywhere else. But I don't know. The idea that I could go somewhere and perform in a different city is just very exciting. Mm-hmm. I think maybe more than festivals, I should say, I do want to travel. I do want to do like maybe small tours, places. I want to do like pop-up shows. Like I want to do like a stand-up show in like the middle of Mall of America. Like I want to do it in places that you wouldn't expect. And yeah, I'd like to do like weird experimental stand-up shows, like that are like almost immersive. Is that something people do? Like, I don't know. I want to experiment with comedy as an art form and see the furthest limits that I can take it and what they'll let me get away with. what they'll pay me to get away with. And I just love to, I'd love to quit being a cashier. I should say that. Had active quitting fantasies. And just really, by some miracle of miracles, make a living. If I can pay my rent and pay my bills and have health insurance and do comedy, to me, that feels like making it. Mm-hmm. Sure. Would I like to have a Netflix special? Of course. Of course. But baby steps. And honestly, I want to make the kind of art that I want to make. And I think I left theater because I wasn't making the art that I wanted to make.
Yeah.
And now with stand-up and improv, I finally feel like I'm, getting to share my voice, and that's very exciting.
Yeah.
So I'm not at the point where I want to sell seats just yet. I just want to keep having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I started coming up with a notion to almost put a ribbon on this conversation, that one of the things that you referenced when you were talking about being a theater student and working on your BFA is you had bookshelves of books, on the entire industry, basically. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like leaving that opened up a world where there weren't books and there weren't instructions on how to do the art. And that has been much more freeing for you. Yeah,
because I think it kind of forces you to blaze your own trail. Because, when you start doing stand-up, no one really gives you advice. Well, first off, they don't give you advice because they don't think you're going to make it. Mm-hmm. And then they don't give you advice because it is such a independent thing. Your voice is different than someone else's voice. Yeah. So even if I was to give comic a critique or something like that, it might not even be helpful for them because they're not the same kind of performer as me. But by having no roadmap, you find your own path, and it's a lot more special, I think, because there's not those years of history and tradition and method behind you. Right. It's such an evolving art form. It's still evolving. Like I said, there is no end date, so you can honestly just explore and build, and I love that. I love being at the beginning of a project with no end date.
Yeah.
Is that a very mom thing to say? I love a project. Give me a project. Yeah. Just got to do something with my hands.
But a mom's going to say, it's got to be done by the school festival or else.
It's got to.
Well, I like to wrap these up with a one-word response to describe your future.
Promising.
Nice. So funny. The whole sorted thing is your password. Didn't really seem all that sorted.
Well, we don't need to get into the details.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
Save that for the follow-up. She seemed so pleasant. But it's just I don't know. I love things so fiercely, I can get pretty reckless. And I think that's where the sordidness comes in.
All right.
Is I'll love things, but I'll forget to water my house plants. Oh. Yeah.
Well, good luck with that orchid.
I will.
Yeah. That is a wrap on Comedy Wham Presents Brett VerVoort. Tell us where we can find you on social media or any upcoming shows and projects.
You can find me on Twitter at breadcrumbs93. I don't have an Instagram, but I'm working on it. Upcoming projects I have. I know this isn't stand-up related, and I am so sorry. So much of this has been dedicated to improv if you are a pure stand-up purist. But my group Eggs, we will be performing March the 3rd at 616 Lavaca, as well as kicking off South by Southwest at the same venue.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes, on March 15th. And if you want to see some weird experimental comedy or just like get to know the face behind the voice, check it out.
Fantastic. We hope you have enjoyed learning about how Brett got to be the comedic genius that you heard today, just as much as I have. Be sure to visit comedywham.com and give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram at ComedyWham, and like our Facebook page. You can listen to past interviews on all of your favorite podcasting platforms and review us while you're at it. This has been Comedy Wham Presents Brett VerVoort. I'm Valerie, and that's been funny. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.